Hello and a warm Collisions YYC. Welcome to my guest this morning, Mr. Rob Ohlson. How's it going, Rob?
Good, Tyler. How are you?
I am so good, man. As often is the case, we crossed paths, mutual friends. We ended up at a dinner party. I know of your company, which we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about it in a second. That I will not name just quite yet, for no other reason than I don't want to pronounce it incorrectly. But we ended up at a dinner party. And loved your energy, loved the way you showed up, and like I do, dude, come on the show. And you said yes. So thanks for coming on. Your company is a name that I see around my neighborhood all the time. So you are president at, and I'm going to give you the mic right now to make sure we get this name right and we dispel any myths on how your name may or not be pronounced out there in the marketplace.
Well, thanks for having me, Tyler. It's Maillot Homes. Thanks for asking. It does get confused a lot.
And maybe I oversold that a little bit, but I do appreciate, and I've joked off air, my first rule of podcasting is get the names right. So I got your name, that I have felt that one, but I really want to make sure, Maillot Homes, give us a bit of your history. You guys have been around for a while. I see you all over town. I see you in my neighborhoods. You're active, you're busy. Give us a little bit of a story, and then let's get into the housing market in Alberta, what you're seeing. And man, there's so many places we could go with this conversation.
Yeah. We've been Maillot's been building custom homes in and around the Calgary area for just over 70 years now. Awesome. I bought the company just over 20 years ago, and we specialize in high-end custom homes, primarily in the inner city and in acreage communities in and surrounding Calgary, like Springbank.
Okay, so inner city and acreages. Okay, of course, I get exposed to more your inner city product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're a little bit more visible, obviously, than the ones we see in the rural communities. But yeah, no, the market's been fantastic. I think we've been very fortunate. I think one thing that we can offer that may be a bit unique in our space is we have a pretty significant land inventory in the inner city in areas like Mount Royal and Elbow Park that we've accumulated over the years that sort of maybe allows us to offer a little bit more than some of our peer group in the space, so that we like to invest in the same space that we're in. It gives us an opportunity to do it. It also kind of forces us to understand more of the market, because we're not just sellers into a market, we're buyers in the same market. And we want to have a really high understanding of what's happening in real estate in general, because we're investors in it as well. And I think that's important because we want to make sure that we're not just selling our customers and our clients a product. We want to make sure we're selling them something of value that over time is in context of the area in which it'll be built.
Which is so critical to the piece of land that it sits on, right? If you get that part wrong, it kind of almost puts things upside down before you even get out of the gate, right?
Well, to give you an example, I mean, you can have, let's use Mount Royal as an example. You can have $1 million difference on an identical sized piece of land from one block to the next. So there's a pretty serious understanding that needs to be that needs to happen in order to make sure we're purchasing the right land. I think it also sends a message when we purchase land that, well, we're willing to put our money behind something. So we certainly think we're comfortable that, when we're stewarding our customers' money throughout the build process, that we've invested the same amount, if not more, in the communities that they're investing in.
I do really appreciate both sides of that. And I've seen properties with your homes in front of them that have sat kind of as rentals for years. So clearly in my mind, I'm like, they're really hedging what's going to be happening on 29th in Marda Loop, because that's my street. And I've dog walked by a lot of the properties that you've owned, which in the last couple of years, all of a sudden now are being turned into projects. And it's a long cycle too. So talk to me a little bit about, over the 70 years, has the land play always been a foundational aspect? Because I do respect, those are two businesses. There's buying land and sitting on land as an investment with a longer term vision. And then there's the skill and discipline and ins and outs of building an actual home. Those are two very different businesses, although joined at the foundation. Let's be a little bit metaphorical and punny there.
Yeah, well, that's just it. It actually turned into a third business, which was property management. Inadvertently, we sort of ended up with this portfolio of properties that we realized that had an added complication, that these homes weren't purchased with the intent of being rentals. So they were purchased with the intent of eventually being torn down. So in some cases they hadn't been maintained.
Accidental landlord situation.
And reputationally, we wanted to ensure that our tenants, whether our customers are tenants or custom home clients, that they're treated well and they're treated fairly.
I like what you said, though. It's all the same brand. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
a bad experience for someone who just had the home that they were renting purchased. And, whoa, I got booted by the developer. Like, that's not a great look in a pretty small town that is Calgary.
Well, exactly. We want to make sure everyone has a good experience. And it's just a lot of fun buying land. And we're very fortunate that we're in a position over the years that we've been able to do it. It kind of happened accidentally, probably maybe 10 or closer to 15 years ago.
Okay.
Is we were a lot smaller. Like right now, we probably do, say, 15 or 20 houses a year, most of which are in the inner city. At the time, we were doing, I'd say, 5 or 6. And what was happening is we weren't busy enough to keep our trades scheduled with us, because we were losing them to other builders because we just couldn't keep them busy. So as the Calgary economy is, there's no middle ground. It's either, oil was $120
I know.
or $40. Thankfully, it seems to be mitigating a little bit as time goes on, but it's still largely weighted towards commodities. But so we were just struggling with our business model and the size that we were to kind of maintain a good workflow. So prices were down quite a bit, and we're like, well, hey, let's buy a lot. And if we build a show home and start it, we can kind of even out the ebbs and flows of just our own workflow. And we'll see what happens. Like, we didn't really put as much thought into it probably as we should have from an analytical standpoint. We just thought it'd be super fun and cool. We knew enough that the risk, given the time we were buying it, it was probably an acceptable risk. We were in a low spot in the cycle. So we bought it. We built a house that we were really proud of. We really enjoyed it. And we got a lot of traction out of it. We started doing events in the home, and we sold it, and we did okay. We didn't make tons of money. We also didn't lose any money. But what we learned
sometimes
very quickly,
on a first project, not losing is winning, right?
we were very happy about that.
Yeah. Let's be clear. You don't have to nod the lights out to not like. Sometimes break even is a win in business when you're doing something new. Just to clarify, before that, would it be typically I would come to you and already have bought a lot and I wanted you to build on my lot? Like, is that how it would have happened before?
That's how it happened before.
Okay.
It still happens that way now. I'd say it's about 50% of our clients come to us and have their own land, or we're happy to provide options for our land, or even look for land with people. We like to kind of cater the process and tailor it to what people are looking for. If our portfolio works for you, that's great. If not, that's okay too. Let's find something that works for you. It's all about, we're not here to dictate where people should live. All we know is the land we purchased, we think it's a great investment, but it needs to be somewhere you really want to live too. Otherwise, it just simply doesn't work for you. And that's okay too. But yeah, so that kind of happened. We built the show home, and it was something we were really proud of. And we're like, well, this is a great way to display our work. We had really great clients, and they were always really generous of sharing their homes with us if we wanted to walk clients through. But it was still a bit limiting in that it was their home. As proud as we were of it, it wasn't designed for a display purpose. Yeah. So, especially custom homes, they can get pretty specific. And I think sometimes people struggle to see themselves in a home that maybe was designed for somebody else. We struggle to see past
the paint color, right? 100% we do. Yeah.
And as a buyer, you can use that to your advantage too, because I think we have biases that we sometimes can't get over, and we've certainly used that.
Rob, there's a whole other podcast about the biases that we don't think we have, right?
But if you can get through those, it's a very powerful tool. It took a solid 20 years.
The first step is admitting you have a problem, Rob.
Yeah, in so many things. Yeah.
All things.
Yeah.
So anyways, that aside, psychological profiling aside.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that's 90% of the job in general, but yeah.
So you talked about your trades. These are all individuals that you bring in on specific projects. Obviously, you hope to engage them for long periods of time. Over the year, especially with this type of flow and knowing that you're going to have these projects online, are those trades in-house? Like, I understand often the model is a bit SWAT team. This framing team comes in and leaves, and the drywall team comes in and leaves. Is that kind of just how it works?
We typically don't have people in-house. Like, we have a full service project management and interior design team. Yeah. There's 20 of us.
Kind of the GC side of the thing, if you want to use the term.
And we're a full service company as far as interior design goes and things like that. But No, it doesn't always make sense to have a group of trades. You'd be managing hundreds of people, but we have long-term relationships with the bulk of our trades and suppliers, and there's different trades that are great for different jobs, so we want to
Yeah.
make sure we're using the right tools for the jobs. And what we like to do is work with our trades, and they get better as we get better, because you can have an amazing trade and a mediocre management team, and that trade won't succeed. So we want to make sure that we're creating an environment that it's ready for our trades. They're clearly understood, not just their office, but the people and the crews doing the work, what the expectations are, and what their scope is. And largely that's usually where trades can fail through no fault of their own. It's they
Yeah.
haven't been set up successfully by the management team. That's understanding the budget, the scope, what the customer wants. So we want to make sure we're painting a clear picture and having sort of a team effort into it from the beginning to make sure everybody is successful, because it's really great to see a lot of these teams grow and be more successful, and they make more money the better they do as well.
Well,
And they get more effective.
it is a win-win. Like that. That sounds a bit cliche even to say, but if a trade is failing and like you both need each other in the relationship.
But the environment on site can get pretty magical when everybody's working towards a goal. And when you come to the site and you're walking clients through, and everyone's really excited to show everybody the work that they did, that's
They're
when
proud.
you've made it.
They're proud.
Yeah, and there's a point during the construction period, and it's different for everybody, and you can probably attest to this too, that where it goes from being a really expensive muddy hole to, oh my god, I'm going to live here. And that's kind of,
I've just gone through it recently on a project where I'm like, oh shit, like this.
it's so cool, man.
And because some of us, me, a piece of paper, I'm like, oh, is it going to be the right height? Is this room going to be big enough? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is actually better than I thought. Like there's a magical moment when it comes off the paper and out of the muddy hole in the ground.
Yeah, and you can see it in somebody's eyes, right?
Yeah,
it's just,
totally.
And it's just that never gets old. It's so incredible, and then they're just in it, and it's fantastic to be able to be part of that. And you can only be part of that if you've taken care of, for stewarding people's money responsibly. If all the transactions are transparent and open, and we want to make an environment where all of our customers are comfortable enough sharing as much about themselves as they want to, because that's when the house becomes theirs, not just, well, this is what you need to do because it's trendy. The more comfortable we can make people, and the more fun we can the more fun an environment we can create for them, the more honest they'll be and the more enthusiastic they'll be. And it should be a playful, fun experience. I think a lot of times custom home building can kind of get pretentious about, oh, well, look what I did and look what I did. But it's like, well, let's do something to make it like super fucking awesome. and you know what I mean? Like
versus performative too, right? That's a dangerous game.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And if you're happy with something and you love it, that's wicked. And that's so cool.
Which is what it actually should be about. The process. I've talked to people like, oh my God, construction's construction. Sure, we're AI over here and digitization over here, but we're just a bunch of guys swinging hammers. I'm being very facetious, of course, but I've talked to a lot of industries, and like, man, an industry that needs to evolve is the construction space. That's a really broad swoop. 70 years, you've been in the business for 20, kind of shifted 15 years ago with even just how you manage your whole process. How's technology playing in, like from a management leadership perspective? Do you figure you guys are slow to adopt? Is it like the project management tools you use, and just always the do more with less is something I think every business gets burdened with. And there's this promise out there on the internet that you can't miss. If you use technology, your life's going to be so much better. I've been on a job site quite a bit this last summer. You know what people aren't talking about on that job site? AI. They're not even bringing it up, Rob. But I can't go to a meeting with a client in the more of the corporate setting that it doesn't get brought up. How's that balance for you as a leader looking out at your industry, but also this onslaught of tech? And I'm just going to broad sweep it with tech. I'm not even going to just say AI.
Yeah, I don't think you need to apologize for the broad sweep. I think it's I think construction, I mean, largely from what I've seen in the last 20 years, has been the antithesis of an aggressively technologically advanced business. We work with technology as much as we can. I mean, in the last few years, we've really changed a lot of our software. And I've talked about this before, is we had really good tools and software to do specific tasks. But then what happened is, as we grew, you need to be a little bit different how every group needs to be talking to each other. And all these tools all of a sudden were really good for their individual tasks, but they didn't work super well together. It's like they were almost all speaking different languages.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we have sort of a project management software now that our workflows, everything goes under that. The uptake's been amazing in the office. In the field, I mean, I started my career in oil and gas, and I worked in the field, and there was largely a bit of pushback in the field with technology. I suspect that could be an issue across any type of industry.
I'm still hearing the same thing from business leaders.
Yeah, and I mean, I see both sides of it, but the biggest thing we try to do is bridge that gap between office and field. Like, there's no one that just stays in the office all day. Even our administration team is part of the field.
The first thing you have to kill is the us and them, right? You got to put a bullet in that straight away.
So backing up from technology, I think that is a larger part of it. It's because, well, this is something that's forced on me by an office and all those things. But it's been great. And we have a group of people that anytime there's a tiny thing that can make life better, we use it. And people jump on it. But you know what the most exciting part is having somebody who is maybe not excited, in some cases threatened by technology, like the whole, I've been doing this for 40 years and I didn't need computers, but to see their eyes light up when they realize something just got easier because of a new process, or even something on their cell phone that they can use. It's amazing. Right. And so that's kind of the flip side of having that level of resistance, is once you have a buy-in, you have a buy-in, because there's always the early adapters, and we're fortunate enough to have some really talented young people on our team that love it. And it's really cool.
For them, it's a non-negotiable. It's like, I'm purposely not going to do it the way it's always been done, because in my mind, God, I know there's a better way.
Yeah. It's like, well, Rob, you're just getting old and you need to start doing things differently. So it's so cool to see, like, when you get people that really when somebody really wants their job to be better and to deliver a better outcome and procedures and quality assurance for our homeowners, that's the end. That's the goal. And these tools simply let you do that faster and better, and with more accountability and more accuracy.
Well, and I think it's the old joke, the janitor at NASA got asked, "What do you do here?" "Oh, I put people on the moon," kind of joke, right? If you can maintain that higher level promise, vision, and North Star, everything is in service of that, versus like, what do you do? I just pound nails. No, I actually deliver value to a homeowner, and it creates, like, bringing that through when sometimes your task is so right in front of you that day, which is often on a job site. I'm putting up this wall. No, I'm actually helping build a home for somebody. That's a tough thing to kind of keep it up high enough that you don't get sucked into what you're doing Tuesday at 10.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because what you're doing Tuesday at 10 is really important, but it also, we all only exist to be in service of our homeowners. Right. So, and if they don't feel that there's value with us, then we failed, and we need to kind of look in the mirror to see what we can do better. So.
Well, the customer is the ultimate decision maker, right? At the end of the day.
But we learn so much from them too, right? And it's such a great experience being able to get to build these amazing houses for people. So, it's something that you feel really proud to be able to do. And it's nice. There's a lot of great builders in the city, and it's really nice to be part of it. And we also want to make sure that when we deliver a home, that it looks like their home. It doesn't look like a Maillot home. It looks like Tyler's home, right? And to us, that's the most important part.
No, and I do really appreciate that, because it's easy to fall into, like, oh, it's a Maillot home because that's what we build. No, you drive, and I know of your homes, they take on different personalities around the city. Because again, it's my dog walking roots. I see your houses start from what they were as a 50s bungalow to an expensive hole in the ground to this thing that just got emerged. And then maybe across the street, there's a group that just banged up a bunch of homes. And, there is a difference. That's what I said about being aware of your brand. As a spectator, it was fun for me when I actually met you in person.
Oh, thanks.
Talk to me a little bit about, like, construction in general. Like, oh, geez, yeah, we've been doing it the same way forever. But there's so many new things, new finishes, new forms of efficiency in homes, whether it's, ICF panels versus doing a conditional basement, insulated concrete form. And I just did a build, we were talking about off the air, using SIPS panels, because it was a company I knew in town, not a new concept, but the way they were doing it was a little bit different. We were rural, so my builder's like, hey, I think we can save a bit on labor. Let's try this. Oftentimes I've seen in the high volume builders, it's so formulaic. We're putting up we're putting up 2x4s and that's how we're doing it. Are you seeing in your space a lot of curiosity or openness to some of these, maybe not even new ways, but ways that have been around for a while, but are often a little more expensive up front, but a lot more environmentally and economically and just fiscally prudent in the long run? How do you balance that as a builder?
Mm-hmm. We love it. We get really excited about it. I think a good example is we actually just finished our first LEED certified home.
Oh, cool.
I'd say 2 years ago now, and it was amazing. And this was largely our homeowners that drove it. They were they wanted to do a house that was LEED certified, which is, I think, yeah. And what it was is, and it just kept getting more and more into it, which was great. So we worked with this team that they do a lot of the administration, and they kind of guided us as there's sort of a ranking system as to how it worked. And what we found out during the process, which was amazing, that our basic specification met those accreditations to start with, which was something that we were really happy about. And other than the documentation process, obviously, but it was a full geothermal heating system. That was really exciting to do. And we paired it with solar panels just to reduce the electrical use off the grid. And then a decision was made about 50% of the way through, let's not even run gas to the house. The whole thing's going to be electricity. So there's no natural gas to the house at all. And it went everything from, let's source, where do all the materials come from every piece of cabinetry? Where is this melamine sourced? Where is the plywood sourced? And if we couldn't source it, and if it didn't come from a traceable supplier, it wouldn't be part of it. So it was a really interesting process. And it was great to be able to do it with customers that really wanted to push that. Because there was an elevated cost, but it was funny at the time, that was our least expensive home per square foot. Because what we managed to do was offset the costs of some of the additional technology like the geothermal and the solar panels with maybe some more thoughtful finishing. So it was interesting that it was actually the most cost-effective home that we built at the time per square foot, which was really something
more,
we're proud of.
But it didn't. Like you kind of, exactly what I was going to ask. What was the premium? But it didn't actually. The cost per square foot
we did
lower.
thicker exterior walls. We did 8-inch exterior walls instead of 6 inches.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of little things that really kind of helped add it up as well. But that was really the great part, being done and saying, hey, we managed to achieve these goals. Because the cynical viewpoint of custom home buildings, sure, you throw enough money at anything, you can achieve these extravagant goals, whoopee. But we actually did it for less than what we were doing our, let's say, traditionally heated and serviced homes.
Have you stayed in contact? Because there is the cost of ownership now. You were able to reduce your cost per square foot, but the operating expenses of this home, which often don't get calculated when you build these big monster houses, I got 4 furnaces. I'm like, I become my dad, and I'm like, oh my God, what's the heating bill going to be like in this place?
Don't touch the thermostat or we'll be broke.
Totally, you're going to get a beating. Exactly.
Bankruptcy.
I'm assuming, have you stayed in touch with them? I'm just curious of the long tail of this thing now.
Yeah, they're neighbors of mine. So I see them regularly, and we stay in touch, and they love it. And it was really great to be part of it, and then really great to subsequently get the opportunity to live next to them and become friends with them. So
very cool. And is that out of because geothermal? Are you restricted to where you can do it? It is.
No, in the inner city, and we just did vertical, which was really difficult because you get temperature gradient per meter, essentially, is how it's measured. So in Calgary, it's not the ideal geology to do it, but it worked. It just required a little bit more.
How deep did you have to go?
I think it was a few hundred feet, but we just had to do more loops just to get the amount of exposure to the temperature variance. But it was a pretty cool process. So they brought the drilling rig in the backyard, and I can't remember, it was a while back, but we just did a certain amount of holes. And you're right, in the country you do horizontal because it's more cost effective. So and we've done that out there too.
And as far as getting access to those resources, if anybody's good at drilling holes in the ground, it's Albertans. So is that something that was easy to get that trade?
It was, it was great. The group that we worked with was absolutely amazing. Yeah.
And is that something, do you think we'll see more of that, or is it still a little bit cost prohibitive? Because geothermal gets thrown around a little bit, but it always sounds expensive, but I don't really know.
Because of the heat we don't get as much heat differential, like heat gain in the ground, as maybe you do in BC or some other
Okay.
environments. But so you have to heat your hot water tanks electrically because you don't get to a temperature naturally to kill Legionnaire's disease and stuff. So
Yep.
there's some other things we need to do, but it was a really interesting process and it was a lot of fun. I don't know if it's a cost issue, more of a want issue. And I think,
Got it.
not to divert too far, but a lot of these technologies get politicized very quickly. And depending on the industries we're in, we
Yep.
love them or hate them. So sometimes I think they don't get viewed on their own as what they would maybe generate in a lifespan. So, and the maintenance is a little bit different, but so far it hasn't been any different than, filter changes and things like that. But,
Well, it's a basic
you know,
pumping system, and
yeah,
yeah, the house I live in now was an ICF house with solar thermal. It was back in 07, 08, I think, when photovoltaic was different. And when I remember first walking into the mechanical room with the home inspector, and I was just like, "What the f?" Like, and she looked at me and she said, "Hey, this is different than what you're used to seeing, but it's not complicated. Let me explain it to you." And I still remember that moment where I was like, just kind of settled down. And I've been in the house for 10 years now, and it's economical, it's efficient. And honestly, maintenance wise, it's been pretty simple. It was a bunch of pumps, moving some fluid around. There's a few things to update, but the unknown factor can be scary alone as a homeowner when you're like, I've had 3 homes and none of the mechanical rooms look like this.
yeah, it can be intimidating, and then it's like,
Yeah.
what's this going to cost? But you hit on a really good point. Let's figure out a way to do something. Builders are really good at devising really expensive, complicated systems. I mean, yeah, and
All right, now we're getting into the tell-all section of that podcast.
well, I mean, our goal has always been, let's find a system that works very efficiently. We've always focused on the building science aspect and of construction, because when every house you build is a prototype, which is largely probably I haven't been to business school, but I suspect you want to create replicable models with every product.
It's inherently challenging when you so your entire company is a big R&D lab. I'm like, okay,
well, yeah,
but you have to get really good at certain things to pull that off.
that people will subsequently live in. So the only thing we can really control, like, we know the product will change every time, but the building science will remain the same, and our procedures and our quality assurance needs to remain the same, so that we can systemize the process. And that's what we need to be able to control to be successful. And that goes, let's say, with an HVAC or a heating system or any type of technology we're using. Let's boil it down to what is the simplest thing we're trying to achieve here. We want to heat something reliably, durably, and with a level of comfort that's simple. So let's start with that, and let's keep it with that, and let's not complicate it, and it's a lot harder than it sounds to make processes simple. Like, it's not easy, but like you say, you can look at something, if it's different, you want to be able to understand it quickly. So there's a big difference between, I think, different, complicated, and simple. And I think what we want to do is make sure we're not letting our egos take over and devise some really complicated, expensive system. Let's go one step further and maybe work towards something that's simple, that works really well, that'll have some longevity to it, that'll be cost effective, both at the upfront and from a over time standpoint. So
it's such a good point you brought in. When you're a builder or a creator, sometimes complexity is fun because it's a jigsaw puzzle in your brain. But often, what's going to last and stand the test of time is a degree of simplicity and a well thought out. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. Are maybe balanced out in terms of cost, reward, benefit a little bit better.
I think so. And I mean, we want to challenge ourselves too, to make something as simple as possible, and to make sure we're understanding how it works too, because if we're going to be part of this process and we don't understand it, we can't maintain it, and we can't reliably install it in somebody's home.
Well, and with the amount of homes you're turning per year, I'm guessing you have personal relationships with every one of these people.
We do. Yeah, we're very fortunate.
I met you at a dinner party of a friend of mine who lives in one of your homes. So I was like, oh, you guys must have had a good relationship because you're at a dinner party at the house that you built at my buddy's house. So like, kind of how we met, that spoke volumes to me, just even the fact that you were sitting at that table.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the most valuable part of the job for me. I mean, it's like you doing podcasts. We get to meet the most amazing people of all different backgrounds and viewpoints. And people really, really tell you things that they're of a really personal nature over the course of, the 2 to 3 to 4 years of the planning and building. And
it's not a fling. It's a long-term relationship, right?
Yeah, this isn't a pack of gum at the checkout aisle, right? Like we want to make sure
this isn't a one-night stand. We're gonna get to know each other, right? And we're gonna go through a little bit of stress together, and that's often where you really get to know somebody, right?
And there's going to be hiccups, but I think you always want to make sure that you're responding in a way that's in the best interest of the project getting done well and respecting people's needs, because there's a lot of personal emotions and our pasts and money and all these things tied up in our homes. So more often than not, sometimes it's not just about the home, and we want to make sure we're sensitive to whatever it is people want. And that's, I think, the luxury of our job is we get to spend so much time with people that you have these relationships, and there's always going to be pinch points and it gets tense, but it's how we manage them that it's important, and we want to listen. I think the biggest thing is sometimes you just need to shut the fuck up and listen, right? Like we don't always have a solution for things, but people want to be heard, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's listening to people has a huge value to it.
Was it 3 years to learn how to speak, and sometimes a lifetime to learn how to shut up?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the probably those were the times. It's funny because
it's uncomfortably true, Rob. It's uncomfortably true.
Yeah, right. But it's good. I mean, you come out of these situations, and you tend to get closer with people, right? You really want to get in the mud, so to speak, and work through something together. But it also shows that you're there for them.
Which is so many of us just want someone to listen. I'm assuming your builders are all your customers are people. This is probably not their first home. They've probably been in the game. They've probably had other homes. I'm imagining they're coming to you sometimes with, hey, I want to live in this part of town, but I know what I like. I know that I like this on my main floor, and I know I want laundry on that floor. Are these often more, I'm saying mature only in the sense that they've had homes before? Like if I look back, the things I know about what I value in a home now are very different than what I knew nothing about 20 some years ago when I bought my first home or whenever it was. Are your buyers typically, or your customers further down that path, or a little more quote unquote experienced with living in homes that they like or don't like?
It's funny, when we first started doing this, the demographic of our homeowners was a little bit older, and now it's just all over the map. I mean, okay. I think with homes is we've all lived in a home since we were kids to now, yeah. And but it's interesting because I think having built multiple homes, which some of our clients have, it can be positive and negative, because sometimes certain experiences will linger with people, and they'll be like, hey, this happened at this home. I want to make sure it doesn't happen again. So it can create sensitivities. And sometimes the lack of experience can lead to more of an open-minded process. So I think more often than not, it's to answer your question, it's just all over the map. But that's kind of what makes it fun. But that's what makes the whole process exciting, is we kind of go through this, and it's interesting to see how our style changes. And it comes out the most, I think, with interior design is, well, how are we going to use this space? And that's when you really see people start to get excited, which is why we built a very robust interior design team, because it allowed us to kind of work side by side with construction and design when you have it in-house. And our customers felt more taken care of as well, because it's all done in one roof. They don't have to communicate with multiple groups, but also they really feel heard, because you're talking to somebody. It happens. Well,
there's some pull through in the conversations, right? It doesn't get like, didn't I tell your person that like 6 months ago? Like, why are we having this conversation again?
There's a little less slippage, definitely.
Yeah.
Totally. But it also, it's really exciting to see how the house kind of morphs throughout the process based on what they want and where they're going with things, because it changes a lot. Like usually we'll work with people a year before we start building, even longer sometimes. So from that first day we meet and everything they want, sometimes that changes, right? There's obviously the non-negotiables, but then there's the styles change. And sometimes we're fortunate enough to build multiple homes for people or for the next generation. And it's so cool. As those relationships grow, we found the houses get better with them because the communication's better, the trust level's higher, and it's really a lot of fun. Like it's absolutely amazing. You
go back to shop glass, that first whatever you made, the second one's always a little bit better, right? Oh geez, don't do that way again. I was just thinking back to those projects you do as your kid. The more you do it, the better you get at it, and the more you go, oh, I realized what didn't work. Is it the kitchen? Is it the bathroom? Is it the bedroom? Like, 'cause I love what you said about interior. Like, we forget what was in the walls, but we don't forget on like, I walk in and it just works and the kitchen is awesome and I host and people sit here and like, it always seems to be the center point. Is that kind of universally true, or is that just, an urban legend?
Well, I mean, you don't forget what's in the walls if there's a problem with what's in the
Oh
walls.
yeah. Sorry, if you're lucky, you get to forget what's in the walls because they just do their job.
If you forget about it, that's great.
Yeah.
You know what? I think it's cliche, but it's the kitchen, man. Like it's, it needs to be super awesome, but functional. And I think, there's all kinds of bells and whistles and trends that happen. Like swimming pools, basketball courts, pickleball courts are a big one right now, and they're all awesome. And there's nothing wrong with doing things that you absolutely
love. But the kitchen will always be the center point of where you're going to end up, right?
We all eat breakfast every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, what do you? What's your what's your favorite kitchen trend that has gone away? Like what's the one you're most happy to see go away?
You know, it was funny, and I was guilty of this because I did this at one of my own houses. It was this like these gel lacquered cabinets, and they were mitered in a certain way that they were really expensive. They were made to look antique. This was probably like in the early 2000s.
Okay,
and they looked incredible, but they just didn't age well.
Okay. That's so dangerous when you go with something that's very on point or on trend in the moment. How is this like, and thinking far enough out, like, I love this. And, again, we've all walked into houses we joked about earlier and you're like, whoa, someone thought this was a good idea at one point. What in the F is going on here?
Yeah. And you know what? What I found in general for timelessness, if you stick with the classic design, whether it's contemporary, traditional, modern, whatever you want to call it,
yep.
Whatever word you want to use for it's accurate. For the most part, but that tends to be the defining factor as to whether something will be timeless or not, is quality of materials, natural materials. I think a big one, another one that's funny, pot fillers. I just don't get them. Like you have this
pot fillers. Okay. Yeah.
I get you. You fill the pot on the cooktop. You still have to pick that pot up to dump whatever the contents are into another container. I feel like you're fooling yourself on there. It's a tap with no drain.
Which is inherently dangerous.
I don't want to sound like an asshole because we do these things and they're super cool, but I don't know what function they serve.
And it's so funny because I think in my mind, I love that you picked pot fillers because I'm like, oh, one day maybe like I'll build a kitchen that has that in it. And I'm building a house right now. And I said to my wife, it's like, I think I might want a pot filler. I think I'm going to rethink my position now that you just called it out. I love it. It's awesome.
I feel like it's not, there's no prescribed use for this. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with me, but yeah.
Hey, I asked, do you have the microphone, my friend? I love it.
It could be the engineer in me. I don't know, but it's a confusing notion.
This is silly. What are we doing with, what are we doing with this thing? What are you seeing in the market? Does your customer typically care about interest rates? Obviously people's level of confidence is always a big factor when they make often a very large decision in their life. What are you seeing? You guys are buying land. Like you're looking 6 months out, you're looking 6 years out. What's Rob's crystal ball look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's always paying attention to interest rates. I think we always want to feel like we got a good deal. And I think that'll never change. So with our, it's funny, there's not a lot of inventory, despite what the real estate market's showing. We're seeing a decline in kind of affordable housing.
Yeah.
I'm going to use affordable in the market term of average priced homes, which I think is around $600,000, I think is the average home, give or take, in Calgary. Those ones seem to be coming off a little bit, multifamily a bit. Which is good. I think some of the rentals are becoming more affordable and things like that. In the high-end market, we're seeing the market's still tight. Like there's not a lot of land available, not a lot of high-quality land available. But it's hit and miss too, because like if you look at what lots cost, let's say in Mount Royal, a 50-foot lot's anywhere from 1.6 million and up. The bigger lots, you can go north of 2, mid to high 2s. So, you get some pretty big numbers pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. Like I think our last show home, we sold it in the high 4 millions on a 50-foot lot. And that when you look at what costs are right now, that's
Yeah.
probably a reasonable amount where they'll be. We're hitting a bit of an affordability cap. So what ends up happening is you get the land prices have kept going up, but the underlying home, it that still keeps going up marginally, like
Yeah,
just with
yeah, yeah. But
inflation,
but
two
there's
to
a
three to four
compression, and
percent a
then
year.
and cost of
Yeah,
materials, like cost to build that home versus 5 years ago is also increased, right?
exactly. So what you end up seeing is in some cases, what can happen is like the dough costs more than the bread. And it's not super self-serving as a custom home builder to kind of get into this, but it's so we really want to make sure we're in a situation where we're creating value for our homeowners, because you don't want to go into a situation where you're spending a exorbitantly high amounts of money relative to what the resale market is.
Yeah, to what it's actually worth when
And
it's complete.
sometimes that's unavoidable with these really large homes. And the goal is these legacy projects that are beautiful and they'll stay in the family. And not everything in custom home building is about economics and flipping it. And I certainly don't want to insinuate that's the bottom line. But over the years, the experience we've had is a lot of people, it's their forever house, but things change. You
Of
know,
course.
sometimes we want to move to a bigger house, a smaller house, whatever the case may be. And economics tends to play a role at some point in the life cycle of the home. So we want to just be mindful of that and at least provide information as to this is the world we're in. Like this is the low end, this is the high end in this market. And that may or may not matter at the time, but just to be aware that, hey, maybe we're going a little bit above, or hey, we're right on track and this will be
Well,
okay. And
it really is about eyes wide open, right? Not like, oh shit, I
mm,
had no idea, versus I wanted to put in the pickleball court, the basketball court, and the tennis court. Hey, you know what? That might break the economics, but it doesn't matter because that's the home you want, just as long as we're aware, right? It's having the conversation.
and the other thing is these timelines, I think for people, they're a bit different for us. If we build a show home, we have to be able to sell this thing fairly quickly or we'll lose
Yeah.
money and eventually cease to exist. If you're looking at a 5, 10, 20-year time horizon, everybody's in the same boat because those costs are going to be uniform across the board.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different. So it can be a bit misleading depending on your timeline. So we just want to make sure, and I think that's something we're really strong at because of our investments in these communities, is this is where we think we can be. This is what we want to design for, and go from there. It's a starting point, right?
Do you think also real estate is kind of, if you look at it statistically, it's a pretty slow burn, long-term return, but we've had these crazy bumps where people have been overnight real estate moguls, sometimes by accident or by good luck, right? And Calgary's been through a bunch of those. You talk about our extreme cycles. You know, I had friends back at a certain period of time, I've got 3 homes, and then, oh shit, all of a sudden things turn, and they were real estate moguls, and then 6 months later they were house poor in spades because they treated it like this quick flip, short-term investment, which traditionally real estate is a much longer game. Like you said, if you're thinking on a 10, 20-year horizon and you've got your 2, 3, 4% appreciation versus like, oh, my house went up 150 grand last year. I think it created a little bit sometimes this unsustainable image of what real estate actually should or shouldn't be ROI wise.
That's a really good point. I mean, everyone had an exploration company when oil was $120 too, right? Like, I think really high commodity prices mask a lot of mistakes that we've all made over the years.
When the tide goes out, you find out who's not wearing a bathing suit, right?
Right. Totally. And the water's very cold. But I think what happens is, but that's exactly, I read this article and I can't remember who wrote it or the bulk of the details, so I'm probably bastardizing this, but they said why a lot of people don't make as much money as they could in real estate is they tend to sell it in the short term, whereas you kind of need to keep these things 5 to 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
You look at your RSP or any other investments you make, you don't see, I guess, a lot of people are day trading, but it's probably not the healthiest return over the long run. But
there's a lot of people doing it. There's very few people winning at it, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, it's like gambling. You only hear about the wins. And
I went to Vegas and I won 20 grand. I'm like, yeah, but you've spent the last 2 years losing 100 grand.
Yeah,
or
right?
whatever. Yeah, I hear you.
I'm
not a big gambler, so I can throw some shade at that. It's not my thing.
Yeah. I mean, we celebrate our wins. I think we want to make sure that we're learning from our mistakes sometimes, or maybe even not even our mistakes. Just we didn't really analyze the risk to the level that we should have. And I think that's what happens in markets that are very strong is we're not good risk analyzers. And I think what's happened with us over our growth throughout we've kind of doubled in size in the last 2 years, and you really start to manage your risk and do a lot of analysis around risk.
Yeah, that's boring. That's very real though. That's very real.
But yeah, I mean, look at warranties. Like it's a 10-year structural warranty. We offer a 7-year envelope warranty, which is 2 years longer than the standard minimum through Alberta New Warranty. But it's when you have 15 or 20, or in some cases 30 or 40 houses under this 10-year envelope, let's make sure that they're done right. Because if you agree that something's a warranty issue for $5, you have to agree that that same principle would apply at $100,000. So we want to make sure that if it's an issue, as much as we're not happy that there's an issue, people that built a house with us did it because of our reputation, and
they trusted you, Rob. They trusted you.
Yeah, exactly. And we want to make sure that we follow through on that trust, and not when it's convenient for us, but when it's when it's an issue that something should have been done better, and we want to make sure we're fixing it. Things are going to happen, and generally when you look at the experiences that people have that weren't as positive as they should be, it's the builder not taking accountability for something they should be taking accountability for. And
I really appreciate the research, because if you're bringing 10 to 15 houses on every year, and 10 or 15 houses are coming off warranty every year, basically it's not long until you have 7 years of rotation of houses that you have exposure on, that of course you did with the best intentions, but things happen. And that's a very real from a risk profile perspective, just the financial, like you can point to it and go, that could be a thing, but it might not be a thing. We hope it's not a thing, but it's still real, right?
Well, and I mean, I think what you're seeing over time is we're seeing a bit of a consolidation with some of the bigger custom home builders, because they do have the wherewithal and the financial resources that if something goes wrong, they can handle it, right? Yeah. Whereas sometimes that's not always possible. And I'd liken it to, you wouldn't buy a pair of shoes from somebody that didn't own shoes. So it's, I think the same goes for custom home builders. Like, is there the infrastructure available should something go wrong? Warranty programs only protect you in the best case for about $100,000. In some cases, that's like the appliance budget. Right? So, totally. You want to be in a position that we will lose more than the homeowner should something go sideways, whether that's reputationally, financially. And that's how we want to view it, because we don't want to leave anybody holding the bag for anything, right? And it doesn't mean that we're perfect and we're never going to make mistakes. It means that we're going to work through it together.
It means you're going to deal with it when it happens. That's the difference, right?
Yeah,
100%. Just back to just the customer. Are you seeing also an influx? Because obviously Calgary's growing. It's a great city. I'm all in on Calgary. I know you're very pro Calgary. But we're getting a whole influx of people coming from other markets where they're also used to paying a lot more for homes. Toronto, Vancouver, just pick those two markets. Those markets are nuts sometimes when you look at what it costs to get them. Like, you paid how much for that? I'm sorry, I'm really happy for you, but I'm like, what? How much? You paid $3.5 million for something that probably should be knocked down? They come here. Is there still that like, wow, I can get good value from my dollar? Like, locals are the worst, because we've seen it go up. We think everything's too expensive, but if I come from Vancouver or Toronto, I'm not going to think that the same way.
It's funny. I mean, the affordability for the high-end market in that space in Calgary is probably some of the best in Canada, if not the planet. Yeah. Like, it's really, really good for access to amenities and wages and things like that. And I mean, now we've never been as excited to be working in Calgary as we are right now, when you look at what's going on with all the development and some of the massive multifamily projects and condos that are going up. But it's funny, because I often get caught up with this. So I ask people at our office, even when we look at analyzing land for purchase, I'm like, man, remember 5 years ago what we were paying for this? I'm like, I don't think there's value in this anymore. And it's a function of just my own bias from where it used to be. But it's like betting on red in roulette, because the last 5 ones were black. Like, it doesn't change the odds today. But
that's a classic failed logic example.
Yeah, right. And I'm guilty of it. But it's funny, we're building a home for some people that are moving from Vancouver right now. And their comments, because like you said, a lot of people who built houses 10 years ago, they're just astonished by the price increases. So it's a big hurdle they get over sometimes, like, oh my God, this is insane. But when people come from other communities that are maybe at a higher price point, the feedback is a lot different. It's like, oh my God, this is like this house with the lot, that would be the land price in the neighborhood where we're coming from in another larger city.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, it doesn't change how we treat things. We still want to be accountable.
But it's a factor. We started off joking about biases. Like, these are all biases that inflict this, right? And we get conditioned by our environments. And I've often, like, nobody psychologically gets punished worse when the prices go up than locals. Because, oh my God, I bought it. My first house was $190,000 and I had it. I'm like, yeah, okay. That was 20 years ago. Like,
but you also participated in the value increase of that house going up. And
yes, you did.
You didn't pay any taxes when you sold it. So you did quite well.
Yes, a lot of us are where we are because we got to ride that ride 100%. So
I think, in fact, if you look
you can't bitch about the end result when you got to participate in the upside.
That's where the bulk of the wealth comes from. I think if you look at like larger communities, it's generally land ownership since the 40s or 50s.
I think that's well documented, absolutely, and sometimes pointed at as a risk factor, but yet it continues to happen. It continues to go that way, right? That bubble hasn't really burst, right? It's maybe adjusted and scaled, but there hasn't been that monster. Why we got 08 in the U.S., and that's a different conversation. Hey, this is going to come out after the election, so I feel safe asking this question. It's not going to put you on the political hot seat. Blanket rezoning in Calgary. What's your point? Do you have a point of view?
I think there's a lot of people struggling in Calgary that don't have places to live. And I think there's a lot of people in the city that are marginalized that are being vilified. And then I think we could treat better. We service a different demographic. And I think it's easy to remove ourselves from the issues that average people and some people that maybe haven't had the best luck or haven't been dealt the best hand in life. We should all be participating in ensuring that they have a safe place to live. Semantics about what's affordable, what's not affordable. I think it's all just bullshit. And people just don't want things happening in their areas. And largely that won't happen in their areas because of economics, not because of policy. I don't believe that policy will ever trump economics. But I think what we're seeing is
if it does, I think we're going down another slippery slope, but that's another podcast.
But I think what we've seen is rental prices in the last year in Calgary have dropped more than 10%, which I think is an encouraging sign. I think the private sector has a role to play and the government's helping. I also think the government does need to participate in building houses, because what happens is the private sector, if the demand is 10 units, the private sector will go to 7, then prices will start to drop and they won't anymore. The government needs to fill that other 3 or 4 units. So we need to lessen the stigma of government housing here. There's other parts of the world that it's a very acceptable form of housing for people of all income levels. And I think we just need to be careful to keep in mind that there's a lot of different people living in this city, and not all of them has been as lucky as we are. And we should try and if we can pitch in through various means, whether it's policy, let's do it. I don't think we should politicize somebody's well-being.
You made the comment earlier about politicizing. We politicize almost everything right now, and a lot of times it just shouldn't. It's not benefiting the situation by politicizing it. Let's put it that way. Versus shoulds and shouldn't. So be careful with that one.
I think we can all agree it's probably cheaper to create subsidized housing for people than it is to get people off the street once they're living there and provide emergency services for them from an economic standpoint. But and all the other I think we're wading into dangerous territory here.
We are, but it's at the end, Rob. So we're going to save this one for a glass of wine. I think we're going to park it. Right. But I know like you said, you guys participate in a certain market with a certain customer. But the blanket rezoning, of course, we're recording this a few days ahead of the election, and obviously I know that's a hot button. And I think it's often for the wrong, it's more of a not in my backyard conversation than it is what do we need to do to make this as a city that's livable for everyone. And I think that's where we missed that narrative gets real cloudy really quick about not on my street, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting because we don't vote on, what type of surgical practices Alberta Health Service uses, yet we all seem to be expert city planners when it comes to policy. But it's interesting. Yeah.
Give me a beer and an armchair, and I'll tell you what I think about how that quarterback should have played that game, right? Easy to say from the comfort of my lazy boy or whatever whatever image I want to paint around that. Rob, so good to chat with you, man. I really enjoyed it. I was looking forward to it. Did not disappoint one bit. If someone wants to get a hold of you, I'm assuming you're a super busy guy, but is it LinkedIn? Is it, obviously go to your company website. I'm assuming so much of your business is word of mouth too. Just like
that's almost all of it. And that's the type we love. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah. I mean, give our office a call, follow us on social media. It's Maillot Homes, but give me a call.
Very cool. And you guys make amazing product. And I get the privilege of walking by it with my dog often in my neighborhood. And I have a few friends that have, again, I have friends that have bought your homes and had you over for dinner, which is a really good sign, Rob. It's a really good sign. When you get invited, it's like the old farmer. Once you get invited in for lunch or a coffee, you know you've kind of made it. And when you can get invited to dinner for a home that your company built for somebody after going through all that process of years, that speaks volumes to you guys actually truly delivering on your value prop. So cool for you.
Thanks. Yeah, that's the ultimate feather in the cap that we value too. But thank you, Tyler.
Thanks, my friend. It's good to get to know you, man. I appreciate the conversation.
Thanks for having me.